Thank you. Yay. I will try not to laugh too loud because I'm mic'd, and that would, I think, damage all of our eardrums. Thank you everyone for coming this morning. It is bright, not in here, but outside, and it's early. We have so much to cover. I wish I could vamp more, but I'm not going to because there's so many things to talk about. Please do get all this out of the way because that is a prerequisite for everything that is coming the rest of this tutorial. If you don't want to, you can also just watch me do some live coding. I promise you, you'll see code written on a screen. That's all I'm going to promise you, absolutely. I don't like to break promises. So I'm going to assume that most people have gotten this out of the way. If not, I have a link to the slides in a later slide that we can have a question. The Wi-Fi network is MongoDB, and the password is World 2018. You're welcome. Scanning the room, scanning the room. Cool. Let's get started, because again, I have so many things to do today. So, you are in the correct room. This is Got Dibs, building a real-time bidding application with change streams. There is the sign outside the door, and I have a sign inside, so those two are in sync, which means that you are the right place. This is a picture of me. What the heck is this? That's good. This is, my name is Harry Wolff, as you can already heard about me. This is a picture of me, not actually me, because this is just a digital representation of who I am. So it's just, photocopy, just that's how pictures work. As you mentioned, I'm lead engineer on the cloud services team. I also am on Twitter, at hswolff on Twitter. So if you are curious to see the inane thoughts that cross my mind, feel free to follow me. I will be tweeting things throughout the day about MongoDB World, so you can like them, retweet them, or reply at me. Those are the three things you can do on Twitter, and I've covered them all. So, as mentioned, I do work on the cloud services team at MongoDB. The cloud services team is responsible for two of the products that you might be familiar with already. One is MongoDB Atlas, as mentioned. The other one is Cloud Manager. In case you do not know what these products are, hopefully you do because you are at MongoDB World, but if you don't, it is essentially a easier one to explain is MongoDB Atlas, which is a database as a service cloud offering where you can register an account, log into Atlas, say, hey Mongo, I want a MongoDB database. You say, create it Mongo. Mongo goes off into the cloud, which is, somewhere not here. Makes a database and gives back to you a URI that you can then use in your application. And you are on your merry way making your application without having to worry about managing and administrating your MongoDB database. There's a full-featured UI application for that as well that lets you completely administrate and have insights into how your databases are performing, if you want to scale them, if you want to introspect them. It's a very full-featured application that what I work on most of my days. As mentioned before, I also do have a YouTube show, which I spend all my free time doing because who wants to sleep? It's called the console log, which is a play on words because there's a command called console.log, but this is a log of news. But you can see more of my antics on there. It's weekly on Mondays at 8 a.m. because I can schedule that and not have to worry about it. So if you are interested in JavaScript trends, news, information, please do have a listen and of course subscribe. So let me actually skip ahead because I see people that are filling in, and I want to actually get. So this? Yes. For those that just filled in that do have a laptop that do want to play along, please do download the slides that are here. There's a prerequisite slide that is required software for you to install for the rest of the tutorial. So without that, you will not be able to follow along yourself. You can just follow along visually while I just do it for you, because that's how I do most of my coding anyways. I just watch other people code, and I don't do it myself. So please do download these slides. The first slide is the one that's most important. You can do that while I ramble, like the song Rambling Man. Oh, is that a song? I don't know if it is. Everybody have this URL? They can share it with their neighbor if they need to. The internet is working. It is strong here. Come on in. The weather's fine. Cool. Let me go back to the very beginning. It's a very good place to start. Cool. So you may be asking yourself, what are we doing today? You may be looking like this, a very fluffy, fluffy dog. Dog so fluffy, you wonder why it's not called fluffy. So we are building a real-time bidding application with chain streams, as it says on the talk title. I'm not one for cleverness. I am, but not in this case. But first, before we go into what that means, I actually have a little bit of story time, which is always the best way to start your morning with a story time. What's the next slide? Yeah. So at MongoDB, it's a very kind company. And in its kindness, it provides free lunch on Tuesdays and Fridays in the New York office, which is a great perk, lovely and fine. And you know, it's always when you're really starving, you're hungry in your tummy. I want to make sure that you eat. There will be gifts because I enjoy them. Hopefully you do too. If you don't, let me know. I will revise the gifts. So every Tuesday and Friday, we have free lunch provided to us via Seamless. And that's great and it's fine. However, sometimes you may order lunch for Friday, and all of a sudden you have a last-minute doctor's appointment, some reason that you cannot no longer be there for lunchtime. But you can't cancel that order, so your food just arrives at MongoDB, sitting on a shelf, wasted. And we at MongoDB do not like to waste things. We are conscious about the environment, want to make sure that we use everything that we can. So we have this very rudimentary system where we can actually share uneaten food and unopened food. It's just not untainted food, because that'd be, yeah. So we use this very advanced system called email, where if you have a food item that you no longer can eat, you can actually email the New York City Google group and say this Super Sushi Deluxe is up for grabs. Whoever wants some Super Sushi Deluxe, a $25 bargain, how's it? You are welcome to enjoy that free of cost, free of care. It is there for you to enjoy. And then what happens is this email is sent out to the company at New York City at large, which is, for better or for worse, not the best because email is precious. And then you have somebody that can email back the person saying they want it, and then you email the rest of the group and says, Francesca has gotten dibs on this food item. And that's fine, that's good, it works, but there has to be a better way. Email's so old, so antiquated, getting 2 emails for every 1 item. I don't want that email in my inbox. I want to get like the latest newsletter about SpongeBob. And you know, we're application engineers or database engineers. We're engineers, let's put it that way. And we can build an application to make this a better system. So we're going to build an app to actually fix this problem where we want to actually offer up food that is available for sharing with another coworker and not annoy everybody else that doesn't care about that. So we're going to build an app today that does that. This app should be easy and fun to use. It should be pretty simple, especially because we have 80 minutes. And this is the key point, and it has to be real time, this application, because when you are in a bidding situation, if somebody says, I have this Super Sushi Deluxe, and there's a stampede of people that gets there, somebody gets there first, and an hour later, somebody gets out of a meeting and says, oh, there's a Super Sushi Deluxe. If they're not notified that that has already been claimed, their expectations are going to be so destroyed. Running up and trying to get that food, and it's already gone. Super Sushi lost, I guess. And we need this now. People are yelling that their email inboxes is overflowing. They can't handle it anymore. So we do this all right away. And of course, MongoDB is a great way to make a easy, fun, fast, real-time application. But you're asking yourself real-time. Historically, in web applications, doing real-time was not always the easiest thing to do. Getting information from the database in real time, then pushing to the client. There's all these moving parts that has this complexity. So it's been very hard to do that in the past. However, there's a new technology in MongoDB 3.6, hence why I asked you to install at least MongoDB 3.6, which is called chain streams. And this is an awesome technology. This is from MongoDB 3.6 that came out in fall, so I don't think it still has widespread knowledge adoption, and I'm still very excited about it. And essentially, chain streams is a API, a discrete API that allows you to subscribe to changes of documents and collections when collections are changed, when they're added, removed, or updated. So you can say, hey, MongoDB, the database, tell me when this collection changes, and you'll be notified. And you're notified, then you can get that notification and then do what you want with it in the rest of your application. Just push it out, tell the rest of the world that the Super Sushi Deluxe is now Super Sushi less. So to actually do a demo of this, because it's the proof is in the pudding, everyone is welcome to go to dibs.now.sh. And this is dangerous. Wakey, wakey. This is what you get when you use free. It's loading up. All right, maybe I deleted it. Testing. There we go. There we go. There we go. We got some things coming up. You can call dibs on it. You should see that claimed in your own browser. Are we seeing this? Please, nothing inappropriate, or I will excommunicate you from this room. Half a bag of cheese. Well, that sounds delicious right now. I am offering up knowledge. Who wants knowledge? I'll just take it myself. Oh, not dibs. Got me. That was good. I could have got that Super Sushi Deluxe, but you just grabbed it beforehand. Fill in, come in, the weather's fine. Cool, so this is what we're making today. This is an example, very exciting, very real time, very, very cool. To give an overview of the architecture for this that we're making, it's 3 parts, 3 nice simple parts. We have the database, which is going to be, no surprise, MongoDB. It'd be surprising if I didn't use MongoDB, I think. Very surprising. So MongoDB is going to be the database that is going to be powering all the data, which is going to be connected to via a Node API server. We're using a API design where we have just a generic server API, and that server API is then being served up to a client. In our case, we're using React. I'm not going to go in depth into, so in Node we're using Express, so I'm not going to go in depth into what is Express, what is React. I don't have the time. If I had the time, I would happily go in depth, but now I will just skim across the surface like a stone in a pond. And this is the outline of today. We're already 15 minutes in, so I am behind. So we have 5 parts: prerequisites, create the server, create the client. Let's call dibs. It's real time and beyond. Let's blow it up a little bit. Do not be overwhelmed. This is just me giving you discrete details because I am a stickler for details. And guess what? If you were here with the first slide, you've already done that first step, the prerequisite. So you are already 1/5 of the way done. I applaud you. You are champions. And then down here is where we start talking about chain streams, because that's where the real-time element comes into play. So stay tuned to the end. It is a cliffhanger, nail biter, tooth killer. I don't know. The source code for all this. So we're starting with a partially complete code base because of time. Time is the enemy here. Imagine that I am an outsourced person for you. You outsourced the initial work on this application to me. I did some of it, and I got lazy, and I stopped. And I was like, oh, I'm going to do this later. And essentially all the things that I'm going to do later are all the most important parts, which is a weird thing for a contractor to do. But that's where you get to learn the knowledge and actually code it with me. Or if you're not coding it with me, I will code it for you, because you're like, well, I paid for more than what you gave me, so Harry, finish the job. Either one of those is valid. So then today, all those to-dos in the code base will be completed if we get to the end of the day, and then source code. So you can also load it up in your browser just as a reference guide. We shouldn't really use this as much as just a catch-all, but github.com, hswolff, dibs, tree tutorial. It's broken up into folders of parts of the application that you should be at when we are at parts of the talk. Like after part 3, you'll have step 3, and you'll be able to actually just copy and paste code over if you need to just catch up. Ooh, we are a lot of people. How exciting. You can also download it. Good. I'm glad that slide was hidden. Good. Great, Harry. You 5, 4, 3, 2. Cool. And again, a copy of all these slides are on the interweb, known as online. You're welcome to download that. You can cheat, skip ahead, but then you won't get a chance to listen to my gravelly voice tell you, it's not really gravelly, just guttural. I don't know what it is. But you'll be able to hear me talk about it with you. But you're welcome to download it, perusal later at your own time. Bitly's still around. You can have custom shortened URLs now, which is fun. Everybody good with this? I'll give you 5, 4, 3. I'm hitting next to go forward on the slides. Cool, so are you all ready for this? I know this is a big, a lot of energy for the morning, but I have to be awake because I'm talking. So I'm asking you if you're all ready for this, because are you all ready for this? That's what I'm thinking about in my head right now. I could slide in right now, it would be this. So with that aside, let's get the show on the road. So the first part, as I outlined before, is that we are going to create the Node.js server. And to do that, before we actually can do that, we actually have to set up MongoDB the database. We're going to have some steps to do together, where we are going to create the folder where the database will save the data. So if you downloaded the starter zip tutorial, you're doing this along, go into that folder, and you want to run this command in a terminal. We're going to make the actual database directory. We're going to save that information. And we're going to start the Mongo daemon and leave it open in a terminal. The reason why I like to make this database folder locally is that if you have a goof, you can just delete it and start over, not really have to worry about it. You have explicit, discrete control over what's going on, and I love controlling my data. So we're opening up MongoDB, Mongo on port 2717, setting the explicit database path, and then we're also creating a replica set because change streams require you are in a replica set. Everything looked good. And then we want to instantiate the replica set. This is a one-time operation. This is just to actually create the configuration metadata required for the replica set information. We're actually cheating here because typically in a replica set you need at least 3 nodes. I'm not asking you to do that today because that is more than I want to do today. That's why, I swear. And then as promised, I'm going to be doing this with you. So let's do, I'm in that folder. You can see lists. Is this a good size, everybody? Good, reply. Make database, what did I call it? DB. DB, because I have the luxury of the slides here, I'm going to copy and paste this command over there. So we have all this stuff. Now let's go into a new tab, and let's enhance this again. Enhance. And we're going to instantiate the, come here, the replica set. Cool. So hopefully you see that locally. Cool. So now what we want to do is connect to the database from a different shell. So we have the Mongo daemon, the server, the MongoDB server. And we actually want to connect as a Mongo client. So when you collect from Mongo, you should see Mongo primary. Here, I have a little extension, so don't worry if it looks a little bit different. Cool. This is kind of what you should see right there. I'm cut off, my resolution is off. But that's the important part. You should see RS 0. The RS is not visible because my resolution is not matching the projectors, but I swear to you in the slides it is there. And as a promise, I will prove in the pudding. That looks good to everybody. We have everything running. I have this here. Again, we're doing this together because together is better when we are together. So cool, we've made our MongoDB database, and now we want to actually connect to MongoDB from our Node application. And to do that, we're going to open a file, the server db.js file. These slides, I always like to think in my mind, let's code. I don't know what that's from. I still can't remember it. If you know where it's from, I don't know. I think it's a video game. But we're going to code along together. And we're going to go into here. We're going to go into server. We're going to go into DB. And remember how I said that we have to-dos everywhere? That's one example there. We're not going to worry about that example right now because that's in a later slide. And then let's just review this code for a little bit right now. Is this big enough? Should be larger. Should it be, actually let me do this. Nah, that's fine. Everyone can read this? Good? Okay, cool. So we're using a library called Mongoose as a wrapper around the MongoDB driver. And in Mongoose, you can actually define a schema that lets you actually have some validations in your application code to say when you're making a document in a collection, whether the data that you're trying to create is valid. And that's just a layer on top of Mongo itself. We're saying that we have a title property, which is a string type, which is required. You need to have a title for your dib. you need to have a creator. And for now, we're using really advanced encryption called strings. So there's no authentication at all going on here. So we're just saying the creator of this div is just a string, and again, it's required as well. We have a second argument of timestamps equals true, which adds two additional properties for free. This is by Mongoose, created at and updated at. So we know when we actually interacted with that document itself, which makes for us, which we need to actually list these things in the right order. With Mongoose, you can also, after you've made the schema, you register it as the schema used for that collection, the dib collection. We're doing some just, sharing this with external files. We've created the URI to connect to the MongoDB database. And then down here, we were actually telling Mongoose to connect to that URI, to actually connect to that MongoDB database. So I'm a big fan of not choking. Am I still choking? I'm a big fan of testing what you write. So when you've written some code, I actually like to be able to get in there and actually get your hands on it and actually feel what it feels like to actually interact with it. And a great thing about Node is it has a REPL built in. So what I actually want to do is actually play around with this a little bit to actually get a feel for what this code looks like. So I think it's the best way to learn things, especially when you type it yourself. So what you actually can do locally, if you are following along, is to actually open up the Node REPL. Easy way to do that is just with Node. And then in Node, you can also import file modules on the file system. So you actually import that DB file that we've interacted with as well. If you're in the root directory, you might have to do require server/db. So it depends upon, that's relative to where you started the Node REPL. And we're actually going to connect to the MongoDB database. Let me do that together with you. So I'm going to go back to here. I'm going to put out that. Go into the server directory, open up Node. So I'm now in the Node REPL, but you can't see that because, again, my resolution is off. But now you can because I moved the file over. And then what we can do is say db equals require db. So I loaded that file in there. You can see those are the things that we've exported from the Node file. If you remember up here, we've actually done exports.models. If I do exports.models, you can see that is the file there as well. And then what we actually want to do first is we actually want to connect to MongoDB from our Node driver. I'm actually going to clear this before I do that. Hit connect. You can see that we have the connected to MongoDB command. Ignore this async await. That's a ES feature that lets you use promises in a sync manner. Again, a topic I will not delve into deeply today because I have 80 minutes. That is the theme of the song. But suffice it to say, we have waited for this asynchronous process to complete, and then we've connected to MongoDB. And if we were actually to go over to the MongoDB daemon, you'd see that, oh, we have a connection from a client from Node. Ooh. Ooh. Cool. So first thing I want to do is actually find all the documents in our collection. This is our local database collection. We're going to do db.models.dib.find, which is just the API that we have, similar API to the Mongo driver. Then we want to actually log out the results of that. So it's db.models.dib.find. Execute that, and then this returns a promise. We're going to use the promise change, then log out the results of that. Enhance, log, run that. And we get that promise, as I said. And then that next line, we have an empty array. Hello. So we have an empty array. Why is that? We have, oh, you're choking too, sorry. Choke is the worst. I hate choking. That's because we have no data in the database yet. So let's actually create a document because that is the best thing to do. So we're going to use the same API there as well. Let's go back to here. We're going to go to create. And if you look and cheat underneath here, nope, can't scroll anymore. We need a title and a creator. So we're going to say title is hello world, and the creator shall be me. That's the voice in my head coming outside. Sorry about that. So that's the returned document. And so you can see we also have two additional properties. Created at, updated at. That is a result of that additional option flag at the bottom. Timestamps equals true for free. Free is great. Free is lovely. So now that we've done that, we can actually find all the documents again. We can go up twice to go back to find, and we get back that document you created. This is you interacting via the Node REPL with the Mongoose API, with the schema that we've defined for the documents that will exist in the Dibs collection in our MongoDB database. That is the picture. Cool. I also have some things that you can kind of like play around with. Too short on time to really go into this in detail. You can look at this in the slides later if you want to actually go more in depth there yourself. You can try to create a document that's in pass validation. You can try to play around with other mongoose methods as well. Again, this is an iterative process to build out your knowledge of the APIs. And again, if you wanted to catch up, if you don't have that file's already there. So, these slides have gone through iterations. That's in case you want to play around, you have to get back to your pristine state. Here's the version of the code that you would have to grab from there, step 2 AD. So, cool. Now what we want to do is actually set up our API server. This is opening up server.js, and let's code. Again, that's the voice of my head saying let's code. Open up server.js, and let's talk about this because I love to talk. So we're using some Node modules at the top there. We're using Express, which is the most popular Node API framework. I think that's safe to say. We have some middleware with Express, cores, body parser. Just take for granted that we need them. HTTP, which also we need. Socket.io are things that are coming later. For the sake of time, they're included for you by default. We have a port that we're going to default to 8080. Otherwise, you can set an environment variable to pass in and configure the port the server should live on. Also a domain, which is just for fun. We have our own custom create server function where we're creating an Express server instance where we get the application, telling the Express application to use some middleware to say cores. If you know what cores is, that's adding cores support, cross-origin resource security, I think is what it stands for. Body parser as well. We're creating a Socket.io server. If you know what that is, you get to cheat to the end, but I will go more in depth into that later. We are then here connecting to that MongoDB database. This is the same thing that we did in the REPL. This db.connect, that is the same exact code that we wrote. We're just having it in our application code itself to actually have our Node server, our Node API server connecting to MongoDB, which we need to actually share and export that data externally to our client. We're saying if there's an error, log it out, tell me why there's an error. And then here we're actually starting up the HTTP server and saying, all ye who have HTTP requests, give me your bodies. That's a HTTP joke. Okay, and then at the end, we're calling create server. So if we were to run this right away, actually we don't want to do that yet. What we actually want to do is the first thing here. We're actually going to add a root level handler. This is just for fun. On the app is, again, the Express application instance. You have some methods. One of them is get, and this is registering a handler for any get request to the given path that you put as the first argument. The first argument we're going to put is the root slash. And we get back a callback that lets us handle the incoming HTTP request. And then we can actually say response send hello MongoDB World 2018 exclamation mark. I'm going to save that. And now if you go over here and we type in node server, so again I'm in the server directory. Make sure you're in the server directory. Starts up, connected to MongoDB. We got that console. We have server ready at this server. We can actually go here now, and here we have it. Hello, MongoDB World 2018, exclamation mark. Can't forget the exclamation mark, because without excitement, what is the world but one of just periods? And hyphens? I guess and hyphens. That's a punctuation joke. Thank you, all you grammar friends. Great. So, we test. Oh, I did this already. What do you see? You see a screen with text. Good. Exercise. So let's do the first exercise together. We're going to change a handler to return JSON to the browser instead. So actually do, actually I'm going to skip this. We'll do this later. These things you can do on your own free time, which you, I'm sure, have ample of it because you are here today, because why not? Great, good, beautiful. Catching up, good. Now, we have a simple API server that is just serving up HTML. However, we are not wanting to serve HTML to the client because most client applications consume JSON. So to that end, we're actually going to make an API server that serves up JSON. So we're going to expose all of our MongoDB data through our API. We're going to expose all those API methods under an API route namespace. This is just some code architecture recommendation to actually have all API-related functionality namespace such that you are not beholden to have it leaking across your entire application at large. So we're going to open up server API.js, which is where, nope, didn't want to do that. go back, go back, go back. And that's what I wanted to do. Haha. Okay, so a server API. And this is our API server. Again, we're taking up the instance of Express at the top, and we have a function here that's called create API. We're taking in that models object that you remember from the DB file. That's the object of all the models that we have in our application. And we're making this express.router. And that's a not widely known feature of Express, but essentially it's a way to create a mini Express application that groups all routing in one location. So you can easily namespace routes everywhere. Documentation is on the website. Welcome to delve more into that. Very good for breaking up your part. Like if you, for example, have a registration application, you could just do a little router for registration. You could have one for just the API. Great example. So then you can also then use this similar to how you would the Express instance as well. You have methods to actually handle getting, posting, etc. So for our cases, we're going to actually get all dibs. And if we were to actually test this right now, if we were to actually go to /API/dibs, nothing happens because we haven't registered this yet. That's good, right? Yes, so what we actually want to do is actually take this API server. We have a one to get all dibs, which is /dibs. We have one to create a dib, which we're actually going to have post, because if you're creating, the right HTTP method is post. And we have some additional ones down here to claim a dib, which is coming later, and we'll talk about that then. But we actually want to import this API file. We're going to do constant API equals require API. We're going to grab that API file. We're actually going to complete this to-do, because we did that. And we're going to register the API handlers here. And for that, we can actually do app.use, because it's all middleware, essentially, is how Express does a lot of its behaviors. And we're going to mount all of those behaviors underneath here. We're going to say API. This is actually exporting a default of create API, so actually I'm going to rename that to make things less confusing for myself. So that's create API. This is create API, and again we want to pass in that models object. So it's db. So it's models is db.models, like that. Because again, if you remember, we have here it's taking in a object which has one property. This is an ES6 feature, which is destructuring off of an object. Let's not worry about that for now. We can save that. We can go here, restart our server, and refresh the page, and we get back data. But it lies, because we have data. You saw it before in the DB file. And why is it lying? Because we told it to. We are bad creators. So we actually want to return all the data from the database. And if you remember before, what we can actually do is const data equals await db models.dib.find. We're going to find all of them. And we're actually going to do sorted at created at. So we actually have it. Did I do that right? Let me peek at my cheat codes. Cheat codes. Where are they? Yep, nope, it's just sort. That's why I cheated. Sort created at. So we're saying that we are going to find all the dibs and then sort them via descending order. So from the newest to the oldest. And then we're actually going to return that data here. And now again, let's restart our server and refresh the page. And we have data. Data. Star Trek would be proud. Cool. So we did that to do. Goodbye, farewell, la vida. Okay. So next thing we want to do is actually create a dib. So we can actually, there's no fun in having a client that can just read. You also want to write, because it's write to write. So we have a post to dibs. We are taking data off of the request body. You can actually, in an HTTP request, you have a body that you can put data inside of. You actually want to grab that information from there, get that. We're going to do some validation checking, saying if there's no creator or no property title, we'll return an error. And instead, we're going to do this. So let's actually do result equals await models.dibs.create. We're going to pass in creator and title. We're going to take this and return it back down here like that. And let's restart the server. To test that, it's a little bit harder because it's a post request. So we're actually going to use curl, which I have a command here, which I'm going to copy pasta, because that is my favorite pasta. We're going to go, I'm going to open a new tab. Enhance. Good. And let's move this over a little bit. Oh, why am I getting a phone call? That is silly. Nope. So paste that in. All looks good. We're going to say we're going to curl. We're going to pass in this data, which is JSON. The body of the data is JSON. We're going to say that the method xPost up there in the top left. I can actually use a mouse. That makes it easier to kind of just gesticulate. We have post. We have the header, which is content type JSON. This is URL. We're going to hit enter. And good. Great. That's exactly what I wanted to have happen. Unhandleable promise rejections are, I bet you, title creator. Wait, models, dibs, create, result. No, it should be working. Sorry?
Creator comma title? Or was that supposed to be JSON there?
No, it should be working. Create. That looks fine. This is saying that I have cannot read property created of undefined. Right? That's what it says. Oh, I can't see. Create of undefined. Create. Models. Oh, you know what it is? That's what it is. I fooled you all. And myself. There we go. Look at that. Nothing like live coding to make you wake up in the morning. Cool. So it's there. Great. So again, you can catch up. You can copy that over, or you can just watch me keep on making a wonderful treasure of myself. So guess what? After all that is said and done, oh, we have a server. Oh, it's so exciting. We did all of that so far. It's such a great GIF. How are we doing on time?
We're 1 hour left. Less than an hour, actually. 45 minutes.
Music to my ears. Anyone use the bathroom? No? Great, good. All right, so cool. We're going to create the client. We're going to use, so for the client, we're using this with React. We're using this application called Create React App to actually scaffold out the clients. We don't actually have to worry about all of the boilerplate code that usually goes into making a front-end application. That has already been done for you if you downloaded the starter kit. Where you can actually cd into the client, run npm start, and does your browser open? Whoa there, buddy. Let's go here. We're going to go cd into client, npm start, and then it opens up, and we have here, got Dibs, cool. We have a bare bones example of the application that you saw initially. So, cool, the application is working. You have a client application running right now. Again, forgive the speed and cadence, but time. So we're going to actually connect to our API from the client. We actually have a API client library that we've made to actually have our client application connect to the server. So we're going to do that. Let's go. Where's that from? Ay, ay, ay. So we're going to go into clients, source, services, API. Go here. And this is our bare bones example of the client API that we're using to connect to our server. You can ignore this for now. We'll talk about this later. But we have the base URL for our API server, which you made before, which is port 8080. We have a fetch wrapper, which is wrapping around a new browser API called fetch, which allows us to make easy AJAX requests on the client. And then we're actually going to be using that here to actually fetch the information there. You can see down here, we actually already have the method to implement creating a div done, which is a weird thing for a contractor to do the harder thing first, but I did that because it's easier to teach that way. So we actually have the path that we're actually going to be posting against. Again, this is application JSON. This should look similar to you because that is what we did in the curl request that we did before. And we have the body of the request, again, which is the JSON. And then when we actually want to just do a GET request, we actually don't have to define all that extra metadata. We can actually just, by default, things are done as a GET request. We can actually just do /dibs. And that's all we actually need to do to actually fetch the data by a GET request. So cool, that's there. So we can actually test it. We can ensure your API server is running, ensure your client environment is running, 2 parts to that. And then we actually want to go to client source index. We're actually going to expose this services file to the window context so that we can actually play with it. So we're going to go into our client source index.js. We're going to import API from services API. Client services index.js. We're going to go here and say import API from services API. And we're actually going to go down here and say window.api equals API. We're going to save that. What we actually want to do is actually test playing around with this. So we actually go into the developer tools to actually interactively play. So when you open the developer tools in the browser, you kind of have a similar REPL environment as well to the Node REPL, where you can actually put in commands and interact with them and play with them at your own free time and leisure, because having it just written in application code and guessing is not always the most fun to do. So you actually go into the browser, open the developer tools, view developer tools, go to the console tab. It's a 2-part series. I appreciate you all sticking around for the 2 parts. I also appreciate you sticking around for the first part too. I appreciate you. Cool. Go to the console tab, type API in the console, and you should see your code. So if we go here, we open this up. Let's enhance. Because we've actually exposed that API file on the window object, we can actually go here and type in API and actually see that file. So we can do an exercise of making a request for a dib, which is the API that we actually defined in the other file in services API. We actually do api.getDibs and then log out the results. I already have it written previously because I've practiced this talk, which is always good to practice. So we have this here, we have a promise, and we actually have the results, which is the same thing that we saw before when we just loaded the page itself. So we are actually able to make those requests. Bye-bye. Make those requests in the client as well. Then also we're going to do the same thing with creating a dib. We have that API that we have defined in the API services file right here, where we have create dib. And again, this is the similar to what we did with curl to actually create a dib, but this is a lot easier because you don't have to worry about the curl command. The results, we refresh here, now have 3. We go back up here and actually log out and get the results of the 3 in the array. Cool. Let's clean that up. You don't want that debug code in there because not really good code sanity. I'm just going to undo all that. Cool. Catch up if you can. I'm going fast because I want to get to the end, because the end is the most fun. So what we want to do next is render all the dibs. So first we want to actually be able to use the React framework to fetch the data, and then we actually want to use that data that we fetched to then render it out. And we're going to load the data in our homepage component. I haven't really given you a tour of the client-side code yet, which you will get imminently because we're going to talk about it presently. And we're going to use a React lifecycle method to fetch the data and save it in the local state of the React component. These are React terms, not delving deep into that because don't have the time. But we're going to use this method called component.mount to actually do that. So we're going to open up the source components homepage file. Let's code. Where is that from? It's going to be the death of me, I swear. So we're going to go into source components homepage. Cool. So this is our homepage component, which is what you see on your homepage of your application. They're named similar because they do similar things. We have here this component did mount function, which is called by the React framework when the UI has been rendered on the page. And we actually are calling this load dibs function. And we're going to do what we did in the browser as well. We're going to import API from services API. And we're going to do load all data and save it in state. I left notes to myself. I don't know why I just did it, but that's a gimmick for the talk. We're going to actually say result equals awaits API get dibs. Then we're actually going to use the React API of set state. And we're going to put that on a dibs object, which you actually need to set a default value so that when you first render the page, you don't actually have an error. It always expects it to be an array. And this is a gotcha because the API response actually returns an object which has a property data, which is an array. So what that means is that we actually have to get that result, and actually return result.data. So you actually want to return the array of information, not an object, and things get really confused. When you save that, this auto refreshes. Everything should still look great and great. Great. We're going to grab the Dibs property off of the state object, and we're actually going to render all the Dibs. So we can actually go here and take this and Dibs.map. We're going to map over each item in that array of objects. So we have item, and we're going to, for now, blurp, slurp. One more parentheses. Yes. And then we're going to, actually for now, we're just going to do, we're going to use pre, and we're going to actually do JSON.stringify the item. We're going to use undefined. We're going to say 2. This is just some boilerplate code that makes JSON stringify actually render things out nicely. We're going to save that, refresh it, and if you did that, you are now rendering out the data in your web page, right there. So this is all the responses from, so we're going from the API server, which is just writing up JSON, fetching that data into the client in the React lifecycle method, saving that data from that API response in the React local state. Then we're taking that saved data and then rendering out here in that pre-tag. That is so many things. Y'all are good. This is saying it wants a key. I'll give you a key. The key to my heart. Okay, so that's cool, that's great, that's ugly, but functional. So we actually want to add some style to our application, and luckily for you, I did a little bit of style because I'm a styling man. So we're going to use this component called Dibs cell, which is already made for you. So let's go. We're actually going to go into Dibs cell. Nope, there. And this is just a basic component that takes in all the object properties and renders it here. So we're actually just going to grab that from up top. Say Dibs cell from Dibs cell. And we're going to replace our pre-tag with the Dibs cell. Again, we need to have that key. And we're actually going to just copy all the item properties onto it itself. So we actually have access to all of them. We can just delete this, save this, refresh this, and we got things. It's coming together, together again. That's a song on my laptop, I swear. Yeah, good. Great. Catch up. You can catch up. I'm still going. We're doing good, so good. Cool. So, okay. So, that was a lot. And I thank you for sticking with me. My mind's like this right now. I'm sure yours is as well. You had all that coffee, and now it's just being like pummeled back down into the recesses of your cranium. But you gotta be so proud of yourselves. Doing so good. So proud. So let's keep going. This is a lemon sweating. I don't know.
About 30 minutes.
30 minutes. Good.
We have time for Q&A.
That's till what? 10:15? 10:10? 10:05?
I got up here 10:15. I want to stop maybe 10:05, so we have our 10 minutes Q&A.
All right. Cool.
5:37. Yeah.
Well, I am this lemon now, for I am sweating. So, awesome. So we have an application that can actually read it, write it. We actually already have support for creating a dib, so I'm actually just going to kind of skip ahead. I've already made this for you. We have a create new dib component. These things already exist. We have here on the home page, if you go up here, you can see that we actually already have, oh, I don't, I lied. I do have to make it. No, it is there. Create new dib, right there. Create new dib. That's right here. So you actually go into that. Yes, I know, I want to go into it. Take me there. Okay. This is the create new div component where it has a very basic text area, has a basic button, calls create new. This create new function does some state management. It uses that same API method that we talked about before to actually use the API client to connect to the API server to actually create the dib. Once it's actually successfully completed creating the dib, it'll reset its state to actually be titled. The then it'll call on success as well. So if you actually were to go here and say, let's test this thing out and hit create new dib, it works. It works. This contractor did some good work, fortunately. And then it calls a function. This is just React talk, calls the parent, and this create new dib on success. It loads dibs and just reloads all the data, so you actually see that similarly refresh, but it's just doing a whole page reload as well. Cool. Things you can do on your own time. You can style this button to make it a little less plain. You can add a button which shows and hides the home page, which is you saw in the original demo. And then there's catch up for you as well. We're also going to enable a user to log in, which is local storage for our use cases, because we're not going to use a whole authentication system because that is a talk unto itself. So this is already there as well. We need a way to log in such that we can actually know who is offering up that dib. If we had hard-coded this value, which I did in a previous version, then it would always be just the same person offering up the same thing, and that would not be very useful at all. Whose is that? It's me's. Who is me? It's the string. So we're going to open up the sign-in component, which if you go to the home page, you can see that we already have the sign-in component here. You can always delve into this more in depth, but essentially we have some stuff, looks at an input element. When you log in, we're saying on username change, and if we actually go back to the home page, we're actually just calling local storage to set that value in the browser. So if I log out, log in, Harry the 2, because that's my old name. If you refresh the page, it's still there. So that's always great. Local storage is our friend forever. So that's cool. You can test it. We already saw that. Now if I were to make a new dib, I'm Harry the 2. The Redux, because I'm back again. So Harry the 2 is offering. So just having a little self-offering party, which is kind of like, circular. Other things that you can kind of do to play around with at your time is to only show the create new dib if username is set. So don't actually show that if there is no username. So you can actually do some more logic to actually play around with things. Show an error if the user puts in an empty username, so things that you can actually kind of do. And of course, add some style with some glitz, glamour, maybe a song or 3. So catch up if you can. Good, great, good. Hey, guess what? We did it. We did it. Whoop, 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 whoop. If I could do that right now, I would, but I wouldn't because I would probably hurt myself and this talk would be over. Also, I have no papers. Where are those papers coming from? So this is all we've done so far. This is great. I'm glad because it's good. So let's call dibs. So this is a part that's important. This is actually going to be our first full stack feature. We already have the server made. We already have the client made. And this feature, we actually want to add the ability to actually have someone on the browser actually claim dibs that somebody else did. Now, it's not real time yet. It's just going to be static because the real-time element comes after that. But we're actually going to go from the server updating our MongoDB database to the API to then having the browser then take advantage of that as well. So we are all full stack engineers after this is done. So we're actually going to add the server support for this. We actually need to extend the schema for our dib. And this is where the power and flexibility of MongoDB comes into play because you are able to then do that without any real pain at all. Is definitely a thing that is great as you're like, oh, I'm making this application. Oh, I need this new thing. MongoDB is there to save the day. I was paid to say that. No, I was, but yeah. So go to DB. DB. There, I clicked it. So what we want to actually do is update our schema with claimed information. And what's really neat about MongoDB is you can actually have embedded documents inside of documents. So in our case, we're actually going to have a claimed object. And on this claimed object, we're going to have 2 additional properties. Let me just make sure that I get this right because everything hinges upon the success of this. Where is it? Where? Yes, good. Okay, mouse. There it is. So we're going to have a claimed document. We're going to have 2 properties on this embedded document. One is going to be a user. Again, we're using this advanced encryption scheme called strings. We're going to have this be a string, and we're going to have a time, which is the time at which the person claimed this div. And we're going to remove this to-do because we have done the to-do that we were told to do the to-do that we've done. That's good. So sweet. Now that we actually extended the schema of our documents, we can actually expose information, expose support for updating this data via an API method. And we do that by adding a new endpoint, and this endpoint adds support for our user to claim a div. So then we need to validate the data sent to make sure that someone's not trying to cheat, because if somebody else gets that Super Sushi Deluxe, then there will be hell to pay. So we need to make sure that all the data that we require to claim a div is present. We need to make sure that the div itself exists. You're not trying to claim a non-existent div, because if you try to claim food that is not there, then you will have an empty stomach because you cannot eat air. It's not filling. I mean, you can, it's just not filling. You need to make sure that the div has not already been claimed. This is probably the most important thing because unless you want to share the sandwich, yeah, I don't know. So let's code. We're actually going to go into our API file, which we saw so long ago. We already did this to do. Let's remove that. So we have done here claim a div. OK, so we're adding a new API method to update an existing document in our MongoDB collection. So at the point in which this API is hit, we are assuming that you are already interacting with a document in our collection. When you actually have over here, you have my mouse. You have this Dibs button. You're making an API method on this object itself. So we have validation that we have down here. We're getting in the request path, we have the div ID. So we're saying that we're going to update this existing div ID, which is the underscore ID. And then we also have a body, so we have the params, which is div ID from the URL. We also have a body, which is the user. So these are the two pieces of information that we're updating this div document with. And if you see here, we're doing this validation that we mentioned before. If there is no user, if there's no one that's logged in, if you manage to just find this URL and just try to claim it without a user, you would say, no, you need to have a user. Saying on 500, there's an error. If you try to find this div, so we're saying here's the reference to a div object. We're trying to find that div. If there is no div, we're saying we cannot find the div with that given ID. So now we have this div. Now we actually have we've gone to MongoDB and said, hey, find me this document via this ID. If it has it, if it doesn't have it, it throws that error. If it does have it, it grabs that, and then we have it on this object div. And then we can start inspecting this object. We can say, does this div have a claim property with a user property on there? And if it does, then it's saying that the div has already been claimed. And if all those things pass, well, my friend, that sushi is yours. The more I talk about sushi, the more hungry I get. So what we actually want to do here is we actually want to do claimed. We're going to update the div with the claimed information. Come up there. We're going to say claimed.user equals user. This is the wonderful flexibility of having it be a document-based database. You can just update things like it would be in a JSON object. We can then also have div.claim. What did we call it? We called it time. Time is on my side. Yes, it is. OK, cool. So we got that. And then what we want to actually do, so we did that. Done. We want to save it. So we're going to say result equals result. Wait dib.save. We're going to call a method on this is a Mongoose document instance that has methods on it that you can operate on. If you were to look at the Mongoose documentation, you'd see things about the document API in Mongoose. So you can actually figure out the methods that you have on there. So we're actually going to call save to actually save this new updated object to the database. Good. And now we're actually going to return the updated div. Go here, do this, we're going to say result. Hopefully I typed all that correctly. So, catch up. So, yes, question.
Couldn't you run into a race condition here? Where two processes do the same thing?
You could, but MongoDB would still throw back an error, whichever one wrote second. Like you still race, but one might get an error. I imagine one would get an error at some point. Because you can't save the same I mean,
Of course.
I guess you can. Okay, so then probably.
But I think you need to do some sort of find and modify.
Find, oh, you can use like a more discrete API for that. Yeah, that's a fair point. Good point. There's an API to do find and update, right? Yeah, find and modify. Great point. That's going to be version 2 of this talk. Come back next year. Where you can actually do find and modify to add. Did everyone catch that point, by the way? If you were trying to grab a document from the database and then modify it, you can actually have 2 references to that document, set them both. You can have one overwrite the other. There's a discrete API for MongoDB where you can actually do the find and update in one statement such that there is no possibility for there to be a conflict where somebody sneaks in that little sushi grab. So great point. Appreciate that. For now, we're going to keep on racing because I'm not going to do that live update right now. But I appreciate it. Cool. So catch up if I can. Cool. So we've now updated our MongoDB schema. We've extended our API. And now we have to update our client to actually take use of that new functionality. So we're going to add a new method to our API client service to call our new API called claimDib. And we're going to code it now. That was abrupt. Services, API, right there. We're going to scroll down here. So we have this claimDib already stubbed. And what we want to do is find my mouse. And we're going to actually have 2 arguments to claimDib. We're going to have it be the ID for the dib. And we're also going to have it be the user. And again, this is advanced encryption called strings. And we're actually going to pretty much copy most of this directly. So to make things a little bit faster, we're actually going to grab all this and copy it and paste it. And again, if you remember, the path is including the ID of the dib in the path. So we're actually going to use template strings for JavaScript. We're going to do dibs / this. We're actually going to have this ID be interpolated into the string itself. And if you remember again, we have the method is a put. The content type is still application JSON. And then the data that we want to pass in is just the user. So this is the method to claim a dib on the client. Similar to post, but we put it in its place. Good. Music to my ears. Thank you, though, I think. So we had a handler text maker API call to claim a dib. We're going to update our dibs text to say claim that the dib is already taken. So we're going to go into the dib cell, because this is where we actually have the behavior for calling a dib. So we're going to go into dib cell. And we have most of this already done. We have, again, these are properties from the dib document itself. And now we have a, what did we call it? We called it claimed, right? We called it claimed. Where's the DB? Claimed. So we have a claimed object. And we have, we're going to ask, is it claimed? And we're going to say that, does the claimed object exist? And does the claimed user property not equal null? And if that's the case, we're actually going to copy this and go down here. And where is this going to? If it's claimed, we're going to say claimed. Not to be confused with clammed, but we're still going to ask the question of dibs. I'm going to save that. And we have on here this method to claim a dib, which it's mostly already done for you. We still have to pass in the ID and the user. So we're going to say ID is this props underscore ID, and user is this props, I believe it's username is what we had it as. Create new, oh, we have to pass it in. All right, skipping ahead. We have this method, claim dib, which is on this button, so that when you click on the button, click on the button, we're going to call claim dib. When you call claim dib, goes up there. We're going to have it pass in this props ID, also this props dot username. But we actually need to pass that in because we haven't passed it in yet. So we're actually going to go back into the home page file, go into the dib cell, and then we're going to actually pass in the username as an additional prop. This is the username that's coming from local storage. So if we try it and refresh the page, nothing works. Cannot read property user of undefined. This is there, this is there. Sorry? No, it should be this state, username, 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 this props use. This was user though, right? User, user, user. Oh, actually, let's check this. We're going to open this. This is live debugging. This is a part of the talk. Oh boy. Headers, options, no context. This, dibs. Oh, this happened before. Why did this happen before?
Username is the end lowercase or uppercase?
You know what it is? I gotta restart the server. Because we updated the API method. So let's try this again. Let's go here. First page, claimed. It's always the simple things. It's always the simple things. Oh, thanks. Keep it coming, no. Cool. So that's why when you have a small bug, it could always be the most benign thing. So that's when you should go to bed and not hit your head against the wall. So great, good, beautiful. So there's exercise for this as well. You can show an error if a div is already claimed, so you can add some handling for that. Disable the button if the user is not logged in. So there's also additional UX improvements that you can do. And if you need to catch up, which I always need to do, here's the step for that. So guess what we got? We got dibs, 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 dibs. Okay, good. Great, good. So we have now been able to call dibs on an item. And I'm feeling good on time. I won't. Yeah, 11. Yeah, great. Oh, I have so many questions, no answers. So let's go to real-time and beyond. Copyright Disney. This is again. This is another full stack feature. We're going from the server support to client support. We're going to add real-time capabilities, push that out over to the client, and then have that client application update itself. So for the server support, we can now finally talk about chain streams. This is a big preamble just to get to chain streams. I'm excited about that because they're exciting. So chain streams are a new feature in MongoDB 3.6. It is an API for subscribing to changes in your MongoDB database. It allows, this is copied and pasted, it allows applications to access real-time data changes about the complexity and risk of tailing the op log. Let's code. What am I coding? Let me close these tabs. So what we're going to do is go into our server, go into DB, and here we are actually going to open up a chain stream to our MongoDB database. And we have here a connection to Mongo opened right now. The first thing I actually want to do is open up a chain stream to watch for changes. And the way to do this, it's really hard, is dib change stream. Get a reference to it. We're going to say models.dib. Because remember, after this point, we've connected to MongoDB .dib. We're going to get a reference to the dib collection, which is the MongoDB node driver instance itself. Then we're actually going to call watch. We're going to pass an argument saying we want the full document when there is a change. This is some good copy and pasted code that I have memorized. I'm kidding, I have it here. And then what we're actually going to do is we're going to do dib change stream, and we're going to subscribe to the change event. And we are passed in the result. We'll actually just do like events. And for now, what we want to do is actually just console log out. Console.log. It changed. How could it? We're going to log that out. We're going to do event. Save it. That's a change stream. With Mongoose and Node, we've made a change stream. That's really, really cool. I'm going to say it again. It's really cool. So because I did it already 3 times, I'm going to restart the server because I changed the server code. So what we actually want to do here is let's grab this, move it out of our way. We're going to say, show yourself. Oh, we got a little, it changed. It changed. It's the best. It's the best. I can read this. I am Neo. We have some metadata that's given to us by the change stream event itself. We have the operation type. In this case, it's an insert. So we've inserted a document into our collection. And this is the actual document that has been inserted into that collection. So we actually just add some spaces. Let's actually try claiming this. And again, we get another event in the change stream. We have, again, here, ID about the change stream update. This operation type is an update because we're actually modifying an existing document itself. So with this discrete information, we can then actually share this to the client. So let's wipe right. So we already did all this because I wrote these slides. Good. So let's talk real time. We already been talking about a little bit about it on the server side. We want all these updates from the change stream to actually show up in a client immediately because I know when we can eat that Super Sushi Deluxe right up. Your hand is on the Deluxe while you're saying, yeah, okay. So there's one technology that's very good for pushing live updates, and that is WebSockets. WebSockets, not to be confused with sprockets or anything else that you might be confused about. It's an advanced technology. Well, that's a little, this is from their page. That's a very self-gratifying term and very advanced. Which allows us to actually open a persistent connection between the user's browser and the server so that you can actually have the client and the server talk in real time without having there any delay of actually opening up an HTTP request and actually having the latency and all these things. It's just a open channel. You have a telephone open. You're just sitting there being like, what you watching? Sports, what you watching? Sports, just that's what, I don't know. Great, good. Okay, so for adding support to WebSockets, we actually have to have a WebSocket server. And in our case, we're using this very popular library called Socket.io as our WebSocket server. And we've already created our WebSocket server, I think, before. If I go into server API, I did that. Goodbye. Yes, I already have this made because it's a lot of boilerplate code. But essentially, we are taking Socket.io. We have this here. We are actually instantiating an instance of the Socket.io server by passing in an HTTP server. We get back a reference to the Socket.io server that we can then actually use methods to communicate across this socket. We're passing this IO instance into db.connect. So let's go back into db.connect. And we have here IO being passed in. And what we actually want to do is instead of just console logging out things that change, which is, neat, we actually want this to be operational. So we're actually going to use IO and use this emit method, which allows us to actually push information over the WebSocket to any listener on the other end. If you scream into a void, no one's there to hear you. Did you scream at all? Weird thing to say. So we're going to emit a custom event called dib change, lowercase, change event. And this is just arbitrary. You're just emitting an event. You just have to have a client know to subscribe for that. The contents of this, we're going to say the type is the event.operation type. Operation, okay. And then the dib, we're going to say, we're going to always make sure there's a claimed object just to make sure that any other documents don't. We're going to copy over the full document information on it. And then just because I like no underscores, I'm going to say result.fulldocument.id. Make sure that it's there. So this is essentially making sure, this is essentially sanitizing the information. I'm not sure if I need to do all that, but this is just me being very gloved to make sure that my client code is as insulated as possible. But this is all that stuff there. Event full document, blah, 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 blah. This is an ES6 feature that copies over all that, all the properties on that object onto this new object so that you can have it there. Great, good, awesome. We can't test it yet. We have to actually add that to the client side. We actually have to share that to the client side. And again, we're going to do that through the WebSocket. We actually have the client code connect to the WebSocket server. So we are going to go into API. Where's my mouse? Come back. Mouse, come back. You're my only one. All right, cool. So we have them here. I remember I told you to disregard the man behind the curtain, but the curtain is now open, so there's the man. So Socket.io is great. It actually has a client library as well. That is the other half to the server library. So you have the WebSocket server. They also have a WebSocket client, and Socket.io provides both functionalities so that the implementation is as easy as possible. So we're grabbing the client information. We're going to actually have a function that creates the WebSocket connection to the server. I'm gonna be like 2 feet down, hands up, like 10 points, judges, great. Yeah, rate me 10 points, no. So we're connecting to the WebSocket via here. The base URL, we actually wanna have that be up just so we can have that reference there. And then we get back is the actual WebSocket client connection here. And this is actually being used down here already, where we actually have opened up that socket connection. And then we actually want to do, after we open up the socket connection, actually react to when those event types are emitted. So if you were to do on dib change event, we get a callback, and we're actually going to have it be a passed-in callback that we can actually have any application code that wants to be told when there is a change, it'll be notified this way. Not done yet. Premature. Okay, so we have this there. Where's my mouse? So let's go back to the home page. And what we actually want to do is that when this homepage component mounts, we actually want to open this WebSocket client connection. So we're actually going to call API.subscribe to changes. And again, we pass in a function that is the handler for when there is a change event. And we're getting given that events. This is our function. So we could do here now, if we wanted to, we could just log out the event, but I'm going to keep going. I'm actually going to, so what we actually want to do is we have this event, we have the dib, which we have there, we have the type, which we had before. We have, you know what, I'm actually just going to cheat and copy this in because this is a lot of code that I just want to just talk about rather than type about. Where is this? This is there. This is here. Whoop, whoop. Look at all that code I wrote. Good. So we have the event. We have the two properties. We have the type of the event. We have the dib itself. We have the current dibs. Now we're actually just going to say, is this type of event an update? If it's an update, we're going to map over all the existing data in our local state, find where this new one is the same, and if it's the same, we're going to return the updated information. So essentially, we're saying, go through all of our existing dib documents. If this update dib matches that one, use the updated one instead of the one that's already there. That's all that this function is doing, with hands and voice and gesticulations. If we're adding a new dib, we just want to add it at the end. We don't really, or at the beginning, I think, is where it is. It's there. So now, I carefully and scarily say, are you real time? Let's open up a new browser because it doesn't really make sense to do it itself. Oh, it's too big. Oh, it got smaller. I'm going to be a default user. We're going to call it be the ghost of oplog past. No! It is claimed. Did this not refresh? Man. Oh, man. It was all funny and stuff. Did I not do that? Do I need to? I think you're right. Yeah. It's always freaking Node. I need to get Node mod there. Let's try this again. Refresh. Refresh. No. Whoa. Nice. Oh, I think I changed the variable name is what I did. dib, events. I think I just do this to myself for fun. So let's try this again. We're going to say, are you real? Ugh. Are you real? Now. That wasn't scary at all. So, there's catch up, but okay, we already did all this. Yes, good. Great. I know, thank you. Let's get to the end. Okay. Oh my God.
5 minutes more to the hard stop. If there's any questions?
Oh no, I'm done. This is it. I'm just trying to get to the slides. So, guess what? You did it. That was a lot of animated slides. You have Dibs. Celebrate good times are here. Chuck E. Cheese forever. You did all that today in under 80 minutes, which I am just flabbergasted. It's also a great word. So let's recap. This is what we did today. We instantiated our own local MongoDB. We created an API server powered by Express. We opened a MongoDB chain stream. We created a WebSocket server that tells the client when data in our MongoDB chain stream changed. We created a React application. We created an API server on the client. We had the ability to list all our dibs. We had the ability to create a dib. We had the ability to clear a dib. And we made it all work in real time. Woo-hoo-hoo. So, amazement. I love that gift. All right. This is more gifts because after all that work, you definitely need to be impressed by a dog that can balance a ball on its head for far longer than I can. Didn't loop yet. Damn, what a dog. All right, cool. So, if you want to take it further on your own time, because we're out of time, you can add the location of a dib. Update the schema, expose that information, show it in the UI, get a price and bounty of a dib, extend the create new dib to add the information there as well. You can do authorization with Google. Real-time comments, so you actually add like an individual page, all these things, so many things to extend this and play around with. So again, that was my talk. Got Dibs, building old-time building application with chain streams. That's my face. That's my YouTube show. And that's the slides.
Excellent. Awesome, Harry. Any questions from the audience? You're flabbergasted.
Yeah, hold on,
question,
I got a
one
question
question.
back. Yeah, I'll get to you. Sorry. Yeah, there's repo online. It's hswolff/dibs on GitHub. There's branches. So the main branch is me playing around. There's a branch tutorial, I think, that has most of the other things there. If you look at the slides, there should be links to that as well. Sorry.
I just want to know the chain stream exactly. What else you can achieve? Is this kind of like a trigger, or you just notify?
So before, if you wanted to be notified of when your MongoDB database changed, you'd have to tail the oplog. I don't know if you have any experience with that before. So the chain streams is an actual supported API to have that same functionality. So it's you asking the question, has data in my MongoDB database changed? Then using that information, you can take whatever actions you might want to do from there. So it's really whatever you need to do with that. It's up to you.
Just to add to that, there's another talk from the product manager behind chain streams. Her name is Ali Cabral. And there's a talk specifically on the depth of chain streams. You can have 1,000 per MongoDB. You can resume them. There's different events that you can subscribe to. So there's a complete documentation just on chain streams. Okay. The talk is called, I can't remember, but it was done at MongoDB Local San Francisco, and it's available on explore.mongodb.com. Question.
So because you're subscribing, good question.
So how do you avoid multiple instances of your server to not compete with each other?
Yeah, so if you make that change in the method to find an update, then that wouldn't that would remove the race condition from there being updates. But in terms of like the way you have two layers of subscriptions, you have one of the chain stream. So you could have one MongoDB, one node server can make one chain stream connection because you open up a chain stream connection, and then on that node server you can have many WebSocket connections. So you could actually multiplex the WebSockets connections more than the chain stream. But if you had multiple node instances, they'd still subscribe to the same. They'd had two different chain stream connections, but the data would still be pushed out the same. So you'd have two chain streams with many WebSocket connections, and the data would still be pushed out. Like in theory, they should all be in sync. Like I haven't tried it at scale, but by having that infrastructure, that structure, there should be some guaranteed that the data should be there.
But that is exactly my problem. When I have two instances, let's just pretend that I'm trying to push data out of Mongo.
Yeah.
Some kind of reporting tool, right? If I have two instances for any reason, let's just pretend that I have prod and BR and then run both on active-active. The problem is every time that a collection has changed, both of them see the notification and data twice.
Well, you only
No,
have, you have one primary, right?
Yeah, well, you'd have two chain streams, two node instances. The clients would still be connected to one WebSocket on two different nodes.
I have no clients. This is a processor. I have no WebSocket.
Oh, the chain streams would still push out both. It might be a better question for Ali as well to tell them to do that. Yeah.
Because this is exactly my problem. It's pushing on both.
Yeah, it might be better for Ali.
10:15. Whoever wants to head over to the keynote.
I'm around,
One more
find me.
question.
Yeah, I'm around. Happy to answer any questions afterwards. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks, everyone.